How's it going, everybody? Today I wanted to bring you a kind of fun video and talk about my 5 favorite modifications for the Subaru BRZ, Scion FR-S, and Toyota 86. Should be a lot of fun and hopefully you learn something. Starting off the list, my first and probably favorite modification for this car is a tune. I have 2 favorites that I would recommend to you. If you're on a budget, you can't beat the OpenFlash tablet. For $500, you get access to a open source library of tunes that are good for a header, E85. If you have an older FR-S or 86 or BRZ, you can even do flex fuel. It's a great option if you're on a budget, but it doesn't have as much expandability outside of just basic NA tunes. So if you're planning on forced induction or anything of that sorts, it's not really the right choice. And if that's the case, I cannot recommend enough the Delicious Tuning Flex Fuel and EcuTech tune kits. They are amazing. They just cost more, and that's just something to consider. But if you're thinking about a supercharger in the future, it's really important to kind of plan ahead adequately so you don't end up spending a bunch of money all over again. But a tune, without a doubt, is the best bang for buck. If you have E85 in your area and you just leave the car stock, you're looking at a massive gain of at least 20 to 30 wheel horsepower. That's huge. I made 205 wheel horsepower on a stock 2017 86 with just E85 and a stage 2 off-the-shelf tune from OpenFlash Performance. The value is huge, and it gives you a good way to kind of scale up depending on how you're going to modify the car in the future. Tunes, they're awesome, especially if you want to get rid of that torque dip. It's really hard to beat. Now, talking about the tune and adding power to the car kind of brings me to the next point, which for my number 2 favorite modification on the 86 or BRZ is without a doubt a header. And it really depends on the area you live in and all of that kind of stuff that dictates what you can and can't do to your car. But if you're in a state that allows you to modify the exhaust and change out the header, it's awesome. It's well worth it. It adds a fair bit of power with a tune. It gets rid of the torque dip, and it's just a good modification. As far as the rest of the exhaust, you don't really need to mess with the front pipe. It's totally adequate. And the Catback as well, it's adequate. So really, if you just want to do a header and a tune, I don't think you're really missing out on much. It's just going to add noise and possibly reduce weight depending on the exhaust system you get. There's a lot of good companies out there. Just stick with the name brands, Borla, Ace, JDL. Any of those big brands, they're going to make a quality product that's not going to fail you. Definitely avoid eBay. You don't want a cracked header ruining your expensive race weekend. It's again another pet peeve I have when it comes to modifying cars, but putting cheap components on your car seem really silly in the grand scheme of things when you're spending potentially $1,000 to go to the track for a weekend only to have a cheap part fail and ruin everything. So don't skimp out on that one. Just don't. The third thing that you gotta do if you're gonna go to the track a bunch is a good set of tires. The factory tires, you know, you either love them or you hate them. I love them, I think they're fun. But if you are serious about turning laps and you really wanna get the lap times down, you're just gonna need a set of tires. It's really part of the process. There's a lot of great choices. I wouldn't recommend going straight to like a Hoosier or a Slick or anything like that if you're just starting. Work your way up. The SX2, the 86 Cup spec tire, that's actually a really good learning tire. It's low grip, relatively speaking. It lasts a long time. The Hankook RS4, I think even the new Azeni RT615K Plus or whatever they call it now, that's another good learner tire. And from there you can move up. If you want to be competitive, you're looking at the RE71 from Bridgestone, the BF Goodrich Rival S, or the Nexen Sur 4G. You just need one of those really uber sticky 200 treadwear tires. But those are going to be really inexpensive, and they're going to get you turning faster laps sooner. After you add those sticky tires, you have to go to my next point, which is number 4, the brakes. You have to adjust the braking system in some way. You don't necessarily need a big brake kit. I don't recommend it if you don't have the budget. I mean, if I had to pick between quality rotor replacements and a set of track pads and going to the track versus getting a big brake kit just for the bling factor and never going to the track, I'm just gonna go for the track pad. So however you do it, you will need to address the brakes, and that it also includes brake fluid. So brake pads and brake fluid kind of go all in one. Just keep in mind, track pads are not safe to drive on the street. Get yourself a set of street pads from the same company, so that way the rotors don't get contaminated with a material that's not compatible with your race pads and decrease their performance when you're actually at the track. So you can ask vendors about that. There's a lot of good ones out there for the 86, so just kind of keep that in mind. But a set of brake pads and fluid are an absolute must if you want to go to the track. And the fifth thing is an oil cooler. So if you're going to the track, you absolutely need an oil cooler. There's just no way of avoiding it. The Subaru BRZ and the 86 and the FA20 motor that powers those cars, it uses really thin oil, 0-20 weight. You have to get an oil cooler to address this. Perrin makes a great one, Jackson Racing makes a good one, Greddy makes a good one. There's a lot of good options on the market. Just make sure whatever cooler you get offers you enough cooling capabilities for whatever your application is. So if you have a huge turbo setup, you need a bigger oil cooler. It's pretty obvious, but I feel like it just needs to be said. Now you might be asking me, why didn't I mention the suspension? And it's pretty simple. I don't think that it's something that is absolutely essential to make this car more fun, because I actually think the stock suspension is a lot of fun, especially on the street with low grip tires. And even in autocross, it gets the job done, and you could do a track day here and there. I think that a lot of the aftermarket choices out there right now don't really tick the boxes for me, and unless you're willing to spend a good amount of money on a quality setup, I actually don't think it's worth doing at all. I'd rather do springs and shocks or something like that once you wear out that stock stuff, especially if you don't have the budget for a high-end motorsport shock. And like I said, I mean, a stock car with an E85 tune for a street car, I probably wouldn't change anything else. I'd even keep putting stock tires on it. With that said, that kind of rounds up my top favorite mods. So what I want you to do is leave a comment below with the favorite modification you've done to your 86 or BRZ, and let's get this conversation started. Till the next video, I'm Sean with a driver's perspective.